This is for the sled dogs in the trenches. Real hockey parents, real stories. The good and the gong show. No filters, no sugarcoating, no politics. Just straight hockey talk and the best guests around the barn. Welcome to the Crazy Hockey Dads podcast. All right, boys, grind them corners, chirp responsibly, and bring that savage fire.
All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 55 of the Crazy Hockey Dads podcast. And thank you to Big John Dangles for the intro. We're trying something new here. So thank you to Big John Dangles. You can find him at Big John Dangles Instagram. And Scott Buddy,
Yo,
how about that
out.
USA Hockey?
It's really unbelievable. I mean,
yeah.
really.
Whose game is it? Whose game is it?
It's
whose
definitely
game?
our game.
Wait. Whose game is it out there, guys? Whose game?
That's our game.
Oh, okay. That's our game.
Yeah. Well, listen, it didn't come without a lot of like holding breath and like on the edge of the seat, like craziness for us USA fans. That was not exactly the most evenly played match, but
No, it was not.
it was not.
No.
But listen, we did enough. We did enough for them not to score, and they didn't do enough to score. So at the end of the day, that's how sports go. The best team doesn't always win. And sometimes, just it's who converts on the big chances, regardless of how the rest of the game goes. And we did. And
we
they
did.
didn't crazily. They didn't.
And they did not. That's right. So, and we will get to that in a second. But first, let's do our partners. Why not, right? Let's get that out of the way.
Do it up.
So we have Howie's Hockey Crazy 10 for your 10% discount. Go get your tape, laces, gear, Scott's favorite, the candle, the wax, the different types of wax they have, the yellow handled scissors that we use to cut everything around our house. Yeah, man, love Howie's Hockey. So go use our discount Crazy 10 for 10% off your Howie's Hockey gear.
Get it from Howie's. And let's give a shout out to Coach Kevin and hockeytraining.com. One of our new sponsors here on Crazy Hockey Dads. If you want your kids to get quicker hands, faster feet, or a stronger stride, you got to check out hockeytraining.com. Coach Kevin's got a extensive library of off-ice training, both like stick handling drills. He's even got virtual stick handling classes, but a ton of exercises to get your kids and you beer leaguers, adult leaguers, however you want to refer to yourselves. He also has a men's league domination program. So anyone who's looking to do my favorite, men's league domination 23, what's up? Anyway, but like this is great stuff to do at home. You don't need to get to a rink. You can do it in your backyard, garage, in your house, but work on all sorts of speed, strength, agility that translates to on-ice performance and stick handling drills and classes that are awesome just to keep you sharp and keep you going.
Yeah, Coach Kevin's great. He is what's his website again, Scott? It's what he's
hockeytraining.com.
Yep. And Hockey Training HQ is his Instagram handle, right?
Yeah, so check out Coach Kevin.
Right. Yeah, Coach Kevin's great. And then we also have Titan Battle Gear for you parents that are looking to protect your kids and have them look good on the ice, right? While doing it.
It's all about the sty plus protection.
All about the
probably in the other
plus.
order. Probably the other order.
Yeah, but you can get both with Titan Battle Gear, which is the nice part.
100%.
Right? So go get your Titan Battle Gear base layers. They have all awesome colors, but the most important part, that is safe for your children. We spend a lot of money on this game. We want to make sure our kids are safe. So go to TitanBattleGear.com. You can go to TitanBattleGear.com.
/Crazy Hockey.
/Crazy Hockey Dads.
Yep.
And use the code CrazyDads10 for 10% off your Titan Battle Gear base layer, the safest base layer on the market, in my opinion.
Yep. There you go.
Yep.
And Athletic Performance Insight. Well, for many of us, some of us are playing in the playoffs. Some of us probably have a few practices left, but I know we're all thinking about next season. And so for any coaches or managers out there it's already been at least a month since next season's been in high gear. But, those that are planning ahead, check out Athletic Performance Insight. If anyone out there has been thinking about doing video review and analytics for your team, Eric's got a wonderful platform that can be appropriate for the youngest of age groups. I used it with Otto and his team when they were mites, and they've got all the way up to college teams using the platform. So reach out to Eric on athleticperformanceinsight.com. Use the the contact form, and he'll happily give you a demo of the software and also tag a game for free. So if you mention Crazy Hockey Dads, you'll get a discount on your season subscription if you move forward for next year. And it's awesome. It's great visual learning tool for teams and individuals.
Yeah, Eric's great. He's got a really robust platform. Awesome stuff.
Yep, that's right.
So, Jack fucking Hughes.
Jack fucking Hughes. Unreal. I mean, dude, so talk about two players that got them into the semis and then won the gold for them that weren't even part of Four Nations. Granted, Canada didn't have Crosby, so that was whatever. But dude, this Hughes family, oh my Lord.
Yeah, man.
They're doing something right over there.
I saw a graphic at the end that showed the Tkachuk brothers and the Hughes brothers, and I think Quinn had 8 points. I think he led the entire Olympics with 8. Well, for the U.S. team with 8 points. I want to say Jack had 7, like 4 goals, 3 assists, or vice versa. And then like Matthew was like +5 with like 3 or 4 points, and then Brady was like 3 goals, 3 assists, or something like that. I mean, the 4 of them. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah.
The
heart and soul of the team, certainly from a spectator's perspective.
Oh, my goodness. It was tremendous. And it was nice to see Jack, because Jack, in my opinion, was kind of non-existent for Four Nations, right? That may be a little bit of a learning curve for him playing best on best, right? But
he was not very effective. You didn't hear his name a lot. He didn't get as much ice time. But this tournament, he looked like the best on best version of himself.
Totally different. He did look totally different, you know? And us missing Quinn for Four Nations, you saw how Quinn led our entire team in ice time. He's
unreal.
By like 25 minutes. I mean, nobody was close to him in ice time.
But I want to say, and I'm certainly not turning it over to Canada right now, but I guess I just, the ice time thing brought this up. When I was watching their semifinal game against Czechia, and I was astonished at how much ice time Celebrini was getting. Yeah. And I told my wife, I'm like, you don't understand. They did not take this kid off the ice. And then come to find out that he led the team. Usually it's a defenseman that leads the team in ice time.
Like Quinn Hughes, yeah.
Like when Celebrini led that team in ice time.
That's surprising. I know when you said that to me, that was really surprising.
Unless I misheard, whatever was, and I certainly will leave the door open to being wrong, because it seems crazy that would be true. But if I heard correctly, that's just unreal. That kid is so young and just was so clutch for that team, but not clutch enough.
No,
just not clutch enough. Couldn't bury on his breakaway. McDavid couldn't bury. Taves couldn't put it behind Hellebuck's stick.
Oh my God, that save was insane.
Charlie McAvoy stuffing, who is it, Wilson in that net front scramble with the chest.
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
Dude, it was
unbelievable.
It was a very, listen, I was jumping up and down like a schoolgirl when we won. It was ridiculous. I'm sorry I didn't have a camera on me, because I must have looked like a 7-year-old bouncing up and down in front of the television, But, I mean, we finally fucking beat them, dude. Finally. I mean, like, my God.
I know. And, I think, Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good.
No, I feel like there was, and we've talked about this already, but the, you hear people and other, you read comments or whatever saying the better team didn't win. And people are, poking at the 3-on-3 and, all of those things. And look, if I had a vote, I would have voted for 5-on-5, instead of 3-on-3 in overtime. That certainly ended up favoring the United States. If you were to put money on McDavid scoring on a breakaway, and then Celebrini, and McKinnon on an open net, you would think that these guys are going to bury in a game like this, right?
You would think so.
But it didn't happen. And then so it didn't happen. We came up bigger in those moments for whatever reason. And then we also killed the 5-on-3.
Oh God, I was having a meltdown during that.
I mean, we killed that. That was unreal.
That was frightening, by the way. Like frightening.
I will say they did miss that. They did miss that too many men on the ice penalty.
They did.
They missed that second one of the tournament. But listen, nonetheless, they had their opportunities. I don't think if you're Canada, you can really be like, say you say what you want, but you guys just came up short.
That's all. Well, hey, listen, if they play that game 10 times, my guess is that the U.S. doesn't come out with 5 or 6 wins, right?
Yeah, and I would agree. I'm pretty sure I'd agree with that.
Right. I mean,
if it was like a best of 7.
Yeah, the ice was very tilted, right? Yeah. I mean, it was very tilted. But you know what? So, like you said, sometimes the best team doesn't win. There was an anchor that was kind of like blowing up Canada. He's like, look, see, look at this roster. He's like, the U.S. doesn't have a roster like this. He's like, sorry, USA. He's like, but this is ridiculous. He's like, you can't compete with this. And you can compete with it. Sometimes the puck doesn't go in the net. Sometimes the goalie stands on his head. Sometimes the stars are just aligned, right? That's why they play the game. They don't play the game on paper.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And I also thought it was so interesting how like the U.S. for so long they couldn't even break out of their zone. Like the number of times they just flipped the puck up in the air, either for an icing or just to get it out of the zone so they could regroup and then go right back to playing defense. It was like 5-on-5, and they were respecting like the 3-man like umbrella on top for Canada on the United States' defensive blue line, and they were just. They had to respect the speed. No one wanted to get burned. They were just playing not to lose, and it was scary for a long time.
5-on-5, it actually looked like they were on a power play.
I know.
It was scary. It was scary. You're right. I mean, with every shot at the net, my heart was in my stomach.
Yeah, but then we also had like Brock Nelson hit double poster, right? It was Nelson.
I thought it was McAvoy. Hit it from the point.
It was McAvoy that went.
Yeah, I thought McAvoy hit it from. I think he went. It was like left post, crossbar, right post, out. It was like bing, 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 and out.
Whatever it was.
I mean, I thought it was McAvoy from the right point that shot that. I mean, but my God, And
then look Boldy.
Oh, dude, that and one.
It was against their top D pair.
He had to juggle the puck in the air to get through them.
Good for him.
I mean that was when that went in, you felt something special could be happening.
Yes,
right? To go up 1-0.
Those feelings went away.
They were there for a while. They did go away when Cale Makar tied the game up at 1. Good shot.
That was a great shot.
Great shot. Right above the pad, under the blocker. Real nice shot. I mean, not shocking coming from him at all, right? You expect it to come from a guy like that. I mean, man, and then Hellebuck did the save on Taves was like, well, first was the save on McDavid, right? I forgot who was back checking on him.
Then Celebrini.
Right? Then Celebrini, and then when was
Taves.
Was it Taves right after that when Hellebuck made that save?
I mean, the first one.
The first one looked like he made the save with his skate, and then all of a sudden the rebound, he sticks his stick out.
Yeah, reaches behind himself. Didn't give up on the play.
No, I mean, dude, what? What?
I know.
I mean,
even Oh, go ahead.
No, I wasn't going to say anything. I'm just shocked.
No, and even just if you go back through those different opportunities, McDavid, one too many stick handles. He ended up on top of the goal. He couldn't even get anything clean off, which sucked for him. Then it looked like Celebrini, his shot was near side, low, it was an easy kick save. You got to think he just didn't get what he wanted on it because it was not in maybe he was trying to go 5-hole, shot it wide. Maybe he couldn't trying to go over
talking about the breakaway.
Celebrini's, yeah.
And, McDavid had somebody barreling down on him. I don't know who it was, and just kind of got like too close to Hellebuck, and it just didn't. Right, it just didn't materialize. Yeah, Celebrini. Listen, Celebrini took ownership of that after the game. Did you hear the interview with him? And he said, like, and he said, like, he's like, I just didn't get it done. He said, I wanted to get it done for Sid. He's like, all the guys respect Sid so much in the locker room. We wanted to get it done for him. Like, that kid also is saying all the right things.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, he's so young and so talented. And man, when I heard him say that, like, wow, this kid's has his head screwed on straight, right?
Yeah. Or either that or has really good media coaching.
Yeah, fair. Listen,
but he probably, right? Most of his interviews are of that, like, he doesn't drink Gato and chill.
He does not drink Gato and chill. Speaking of drinking Gato and chill, I give Jack Hughes a lot of credit for what he said after the game, man.
Yeah.
Again, said all the right things. Was asked about like how I think the interviewer asked him, like, she asked the first question. The second question was like, how do you feel about winning the gold medal or something like that? It was a personal question to him. And the first thing he said was, Hellebuck was our best player tonight.
Yeah.
he wasn't even talking about himself. Good for him. He talked about the team. He talked about how much he loves the United States and how proud he was to be an American. I mean,
dude, that the interview was great, but if you kind of like rewind, just going like think of the Hughes brothers, Quinn almost ended it in overtime first. Like, Binnington made that glove save that went like didn't go through his glove, but he got Binnington he couldn't hang on to it.
No, I thought the game was over right there.
Yeah, you were like, oh man.
I thought that was the game.
When I knew that I didn't think that they honestly didn't think they had a chance to win it in 5-on-5. I was just like hoping that they were going to get to overtime, because that's a totally different game 3-on-3 than 5-on-5. That transition or that change like so benefited the United States.
It did. There's no question about it. If we had to go 5-on-5, that would have been scarier. Listen, not like 3-on-3 is not scary. I mean, you get guys like McCarr, McKinnon, and McDavid out there. That's frightening. Like, I mean, right? I don't care who you run out there for the United States. You run out Jack Hughes, Quinn Hughes, and Jack Eichel, or like Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel and Quinn Hughes. Still, but that Canadian three are frightening.
Yeah, but it's just it becomes so much more a man-on-man as opposed to any type of like systematic play, in a lot of ways. So when you're playing man-on-man and you get burned, your guy beats you, your team's at a deficit. You know what I mean? So it's like you can't necessarily rely on people like gapping up and sliding and shifting. It's a different animal, that 3-on-3.
That's fair. I'll say that. But you know what? Listen,
listen. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, it's clear that there are events that happened in that game that were unbelievable that Canada didn't capitalize. So fortunate for the United States, and the 3-on-3 was also something that benefited them. But at the end of the day, people can say what they want. The United States ended up winning.
Do you remember the play? We get on Austin Matthews a lot for not being McDavid and scoring and being the USA captain. But did you see when McDavid came down? I want to say it was on Jack Hughes.
Yep.
And
when he came out of the box.
It was in the 3-on-3. It was in the overtime. It was 3-on-3.
Was it in the overtime?
McDavid came down the middle, and I want to say, I thought Hughes was on the ice with Werenski and Matthews, but Matthews made a play. It looked like Connor McDavid fanned on it. Remember the play I'm talking about?
Oh my God, yes, he totally fanned on it.
No, he didn't. Austin Matthews poked it away from him.
Oh, really?
If you go look at it again, Austin Matthews poked the stick away, so when he went to shoot, the puck wasn't there.
He couldn't. Oh my God!
Yes, dude.
That totally looked like he fanned on it. I was like, I can't believe McDavid's fanning on shots in overtime.
He didn't. Matthews poked it away from his stick, so when he went to swing, the puck was not there. So we get on him a lot. But dude, that defensive play right there, I mean, my God, if he had got that
Yeah.
shot up, where would it have gone?
No,
Right? You never know.
without a doubt. And that's like, if I listening to others talk about Matthews, they definitely praise his 200-foot game. And he definitely doesn't have the same kind of like highlight. I mean, he has had them within his like career, but the same type of highlights that McDavid or McKinnon are creating, he's not making that same kind of
Impact.
I don't know. I don't even know about impact, but like he's just not the same kind of player. He's a superstar in a different way, and he puts in a ton of goals, and he'll probably continue to do that. But he's I don't know. I guess it's just been easy to say he doesn't do what these other guys do, and like then I'm not following that up by like kind of looking at the things that he does do that others don't, and kind of giving him more credit for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I get on him a lot, but because I want him to be like the Matthews that he is when he plays for the Maple Leafs, right? But best on best is hard, man.
Totally hard. And like great players also adapt their game for what's needed. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that that's what Austin did. I have no clue. I just,
yeah,
he's a different player, and he contributed, and they won.
And they won.
And they won. And the girls won. And the men won. And
they both
beat
And they both beat Canada in OT.
And they did that. And we have more medals in Canada. And so
yeah, dude, they're not even like the top 5 or 6. Do you notice that?
Yeah, I did.
Like it's Norway, USA, and then like
but Norway also had one person take home 6 in like that cross country biathlete.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, listen, I
think that's the most. That might be the most in individuals taken in the Winter Olympics.
Is that right?
It might be.
Listen, a lot of credit to that person. They live in a very cold area, so I give them.
I mean, he definitely at least has like a Nordic track in his house. At least one,
if not many.
Many Nordic tracks.
One in each room.
Remember Nordic Track? That was ridiculous.
I do remember Nordic Track. I never had one, but I do remember Nordic Track. Yes. Yeah, man. So that's So did you see Barstool Sports? By the way, Barstool Sports came out with a sweatshirt that has like something like stars and like the sticks for the stripes, right, for the red stripes, and on the back it says things that Canada does better than the United States. And it says 1, hockey, and 2 was nothing. Like saying that they just did hockey better than the United States.
Yeah.
And it was hockey crossed out.
Yeah. There you go.
Listen, and I love our Canadian listeners. I love our Canadian followers. You guys are wonderful. But yeah, we got you this time.
We did. And look, I think there's been a bunch of talk also about the NTDP here, in the States. We got a lot of like 2nd, 3rd generation hockey families now, and there's a pathway, and the development league, just to kind of like bring that into context, is just yet another layer that's going to help funnel elite talent, through, USA's elite programs, and just help shape our future hockey players. And I think you see it in the World Junior stage that we, the last couple of years we've done, excellent. This last one wasn't, obviously our best, but, I think you see it in all different, men's, women's, different age groups that USA Hockey is, certainly we're there.
Yeah, we are. And it's funny that you mentioned that, Scott, because you're right. We won the last 2 out of the 3 World Juniors, right? This year, not so lucky. This year Sweden had a very good hockey team. Hats off to them. Gotta give them a ton of credit. And it's funny, after that 4 Nations, we had some comments written into us about, what is development like? What is the youth programs like? What's development like for young hockey players overseas?
Right.
And we have an interview for you guys today that will kind of maybe shed some light on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have Matt Dumouchelle today, and he will give you guys a little context on, what youth hockey looks like overseas and what the development models look like overseas and how they're different from the United States.
Yeah, and Matt Dumouchelle, for those of you that are not familiar with him, he's been like in all different facets of the game. He's worked as in the world of junior hockey at the OJHL as an assistant GM, evaluating players, studied international development models. He writes for the Coaches site. If you're not familiar with the Coaches site, check it out. It's a great hockey resource, certainly geared towards coaching and teaching, but it's still very interesting for anyone that wants to learn about hockey and different tactics, etc. But nonetheless, yeah, he also sits on a minor hockey board, and so we talked to him, about a lot of things, but mostly, I think player development was the focus of the conversation, and just kind of understanding what it's like in other countries compared to what he's seeing in Canada and North America. And it was a wonderful interview just to learn more about what he's experienced, being in all the different capacities he's been in terms of like, journalist, GM, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. He's got his finger on the pulse of kind of what development looks like overseas compared to what we do here and what they do up to our, up in the north in Canada. It was pretty impressive. It was pretty cool. And it's been a topic that people have been asking us to kind of talk about for a while. So this came at a perfect time with Matt.
Yeah. So you want to kick it over to Matt?
Yeah, after you, buddy.
Yeah, and just to get ahead of it, and it was totally my bad, rookie mistake. I mispronounced his name when we first opened up the interview. So that was my bad. I was reading, and that anyway, my mistake. Listen, embarrassing, but it happens to the best of it. But Matt, apologies. But it was a wonderful conversation, and let's kick it over.
Here we go.
All right, dude.
Absolutely.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the next interview here on the Crazy Hockey Dads podcast. We got Matt Dumouchelle, a longtime hockey executive, writer, youth sports advocate who spent over a decade working behind the scenes in junior hockey and player development. And wow, super excited to have you on tonight, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
No, it's awesome. Great to see you guys. And thanks for the invite and the opportunity.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
So, Matt, why don't you kind of tell our audience kind of like, what you did as a kid, kind of go through from when you were a kid up to like, high school, college, and up to like what you're doing now, kind of give everybody some context on your background.
For sure. So as far as youth sports and stuff is concerned, I played baseball when I was a kid. I had no special level or anything like that. Mostly just kind of house leagues and that. I think if you ask my mom, I made a couple of all-star teams. Would probably have the ribbons in the basement somewhere. But that was baseball was always my first love. And then sports has always had a huge part of my life. I watch every sport, follow as many sports as I can, learning more about different sports, and that kind of intrigued me or kind of led me to my eventual goal and career path was working in radio. So I went to college in Toronto at Humber College, took radio broadcasting, worked in the industry for 10 years, which is something not a lot of people get to say in radio. But I worked as a newscaster, sportscaster, did some play-by-play and some color commentary for a team in Owen Sound in the Ontario Hockey League when I was working up there. And then when I got let go from the radio station in 2012, sports had always been kind of the driving factor towards why I wanted to do radio. And, the part of that was getting to interact with coaches and players and learn the kind of the behind the scenes part of things. And right. So I had taken the next step after that to go to the other side of the fence and start working for some teams themselves. I was blessed. I got a chance to work for a startup baseball team in London, Ontario, the London Rippers, which was part of the Frontier League
cool.
baseball. So it was independent ball, lived a full Bull Durham summer on the bus for 13-hour nights.
Great movie.
It was one of the best summers of my life, really.
That's cool.
Only time I can tell you, even through having kids and stuff, I truly didn't know what day of the week it was. We were just in some field in Kansas, and then we were in another one in Pennsylvania, and overnight buses and all that, but just had an awesome experience. Was back in Windsor and worked for the Windsor Express basketball team. We won 2 championships in the 3 years that I was there with them. and then started working in hockey. Volunteered with Junior C team in Amherstburg as an assistant GM there. Worked with a junior B team and a team that now the Leamington Flyers is in the Ontario Junior Hockey League. With them for 5 years. Won a Sutherland Cup with them in 2022. Saw the team get built from a junior B team to moving up to a junior A team. And along that path, got an opportunity to connect with Aaron Wilbur and his group at the coaches site. And was given, I think, the greatest blessing that I've had in sports, and the opportunity to write the feature that I get to do called Hockey Factories. So if you haven't heard of it, Hockey Factories, we've done 15 of them now, and it's basically an in-depth look into development programs in hockey around the world. We've done some in Canada, the US, Switzerland, Latvia, Sweden, Finland, Slovakia, and different levels, different experiences, and all of that. And the idea behind it was first to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit and see what a Frölunda in Sweden does that makes them Frölunda.
What they are, yeah.
And but also in the same sense, what are they doing that, I sit on the board with Riverside Minor Hockey here in our area, like what's something they're doing that we can do at home that's, easy, that's doesn't cost anything. There's plenty of that to it. I always go back to one of the quotes that I had gotten from Roger Ronberg, who's the first team head coach at Frölunda. He had always said that he challenges his staff to be number one at everything that's free. And I always loved that because, you're thinking of Frölunda as like the Yankees of hockey, maybe in Europe, maybe in the world.
Yeah.
And they're trying to find ways to do things that are going to help the club, that don't cost the club anything. And that comes from, communication within your coaches, being aligned as an organization, all of those things. So I've kind of taken those things that I've learned. Now I just launched in the last couple of days, actually, from when we record this, a website. It's my name, mattdumouchelle.com, to help with, giving back to some organizations, families, players, coaches, as far as development's concerned, taking some of the things that I've learned that are tangible, that can be done anywhere, that are proven results-oriented things that will help your organization ultimately create the best sports experience they can for the kids that are involved in the program.
Wow. Well, hold on, James, before you dive into it, because I know you want to, but I just have to ask this question. I know, sorry, I cut you off. But so anyone that we've had on the pod so far or spoken to that's from Canada, like, of course they were hockey players. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking to someone that was a baseball player.
Yes.
What was it like growing up in terms of choosing not to play hockey? And was everyone around you playing hockey? Because as an American growing up, when I was playing hockey, and you think about Canadians, and it's like, of course, that's all they do. They're on the ice. Just like, the misconception about
that's what we do. Yeah.
Yeah. Like about Minnesota also. It's like, you assume everyone's doing it. But what was it like for you? Like, were like most of your friends playing hockey? Were you like the oddball, or is it really just maybe a little bit of a misconception when, we talk about Canadians and their affinity for hockey?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes to a few of those questions. Realistically, yeah, I had a bunch of buddies that were playing hockey and that I played hockey for a long time. I didn't really necessarily come from a real sports oriented family. I loved baseball. I'd always gravitated to baseball when I was a kid. Growing up in Windsor, I think it's one of the best 4-hour radiuses in North America. I mean, we can see Detroit. I mean, it's right there. Chicago's 4.5 hours away. Right. Cleveland, Toronto, like it's a great little mecca of sports cities. And so, yeah, I probably was the odd man out without even really noticing it, that I wasn't playing hockey. And I didn't really get into hockey, honestly, from a watching a regular standpoint until, like I said, so I was born in 81. It was probably 12 or 13 years old when the Red Wings started their runs in the 90s.
Right.
They
Right.
lose to the Sharks in the first round, and then they go to the Stanley Cup in 95 and lose to the Devils, and then
I
they
was
start
there.
turning into the Red Wings that
Yeah.
we all knew and loved. So I probably got into hockey at the right time, but like we were joking at the beginning, I can't skate, I can't shoot, I can't do much of that. I go out on the ice with my little guy's team. Luckily, he's a goalie, so I just got to sit there and fire shots at him instead of trying to stop and start in the middle of the ice and go
That's
different
okay.
directions.
That's
so
all right.
I'm good with that. But no, looking back, obviously I wish that I had. I'm a competitive person in sport in general, and would have loved to experience playing a game like that, for sure. But the opportunities that hockey has given me, you have a bit of imposter syndrome, I guess, getting into it in a sense that, and not to brag, like when I'm doing these Hockey Factories articles, like I've done WhatsApp and Zoom calls with like Yari Curry and Peter Forsberg and some of these just
that must be
incredible
wild.
people
Yeah,
you're just sitting there like, what? Why is he talking to me? Like I
Right.
never played a game in my life. So hockey has given me hockey has given me a lot. So this is, I guess, my way to try to make things even in the gifts that the sport has given me.
Oh, that's
Listen,
awesome.
You're doing a good job, Matt. So you
Thank you.
you mentioned the Red Wings, and you mentioned the fact that you're right there by Detroit. So I have a question for you. So the way you and I actually hooked up, I don't know if you remember, but we reposted something that you wrote about a Red Wings draft pick.
Yes.
So why don't you tell that story? Because I think sometimes our audience and the crazy hockey dads or the crazy hockey moms out there think that, a kid needs to be the best 10-year-old or 9-year-old or 8-year-old or a 13-year-old. Do me a favor. Can you tell the story of that young man? Because I think it's very telling and will kind of maybe set some of our listeners at ease. I'm sure. Yes.
So sorry to interrupt, Matt. So sorry. I just got a notification that something stopped recording. I don't know if you saw the same thing.
That works.
All right, no worries. Yo, did I mispronounce his name in the beginning?
Dumouchelle.
Yeah, but why didn't you tell me that when I had texted you? I mispronounced it.
I did.
You said no.
Yes. I said, you said I
Sorry
said it
about
right.
that,
I
guys.
said,
I got,
no worries. We gotcha.
The internet's okay here.
No, we
clicked on
trust
something.
me. Thank God we can edit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Well, I'm trying to. Where should we want? You want to pick up
So
where?
I'll start. I'll take the answer off of your question there. So recently I went to a Red Wings game with my little guy, and the kid that stood out to me, who I thought was one of the better players on the ice, was Emmett Finney, and he's a rookie coming into the Red Wings. He had a great camp. Saw his name coming up a bunch of times in the news and in reports, and it almost seemed like he was a guy that they were trying to find a reason to not put him on the team, and then end of the day he just worked his way onto that team. But then when you do more research on him and you do more digging, he was 5'3". He was a 4th round pick in the WHL draft. He didn't score a goal in 48 games with the Kamloops Blazers when he was in junior hockey. In his draft year, he had 9 goals in 64 games. He's never really been an offensive player, and I would struggle to say that he's really been a star at any point leading up to that. He just, the articles that were being written about him and the comments that were being made about him was that he was tenacious, a great work ethic, that he loved playing the game, and it was an infectious kind of energy that he was bringing to a team. And now he sits on the first line with the Red Wings most nights. He's playing with Dylan Larkin, he plays with Lucas Raymond. He's putting up points, and he's become a valuable guy to that lineup. So I mean, from that comparison, I thought there's just so many stories like that it seems impossible that all we're thinking of is that you've got to be the best at 9 and you've got to be the best at 12 and you've got to be the best at 15, when truly it doesn't matter in any way what you're doing at those levels. There's so much of what we do as a person that brings success to us in just being consistent over a long period of time. When asking that of a 10-year-old or projecting that at a 10-year-old sounds, or should sound, pretty ludicrous.
Yes. Yes, I say it all the time. They're consistently inconsistent.
Yeah, and
Right?
there's nothing wrong with that. You know, like I think that's a big part. And kind of to jump ahead of, I'm sure where we're going. You know, I had a conversation with an NHL assistant coach a couple of years ago, just around hockey factories and kind of digging on his thoughts on it. And I had said, you know, for you at the NHL level, at what age do you have circled in, like, this kid is running on everything? He's top talent, top efficiency. He's, you know, this is his best window. And the age he gave me was 26.
Wow.
Which is fair in most cases. You know, you've got the Connor Bedards that are coming at 19 and 18, you know, the unicorns that are in.
Yeah.
But when you do research and you look into the average duration of an NHL career, it's about 4.5, 5 years. And if you're looking at the average age of an NHL debut, it's around 24 to 25. So the math makes sense. But then when you bring that back to where you guys talk on a regular basis, where some of the youth development articles and such that I write kind of go to, I mean, when you're looking at that and we're talking about a 13-year-old, we're doubling their lifetime to when they're expected to be firing on all cylinders.
Isn't that unbelievable? Doubling. Right.
Yeah.
And yet some of us get mad, you know, at 13 that our kid's not performing. It's crazy.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think also part of it, which I've certainly heard before, but like a large percentage of players in the NHL have spent time in the AHL.
For
right?
sure.
So if you think about the AHL as a stepping stone to the NHL, and it's just yet another level where you have to go out and prove yourself and get better day in and day out. It's like the runway is quite long.
Absolutely.
Right? Especially when you get to the age of 24, which is clearly what we're talking about. You know, and it's just, again, like we've said on so many podcasts, like these highlight world we live in, and you see these young phenoms, and it's just about all these super duper highlights. And it's like, you know, if these kids start, you know, and young adults are preparing for like the longer game, meaning like, you know, let's get to the highest levels when we're at the age of 24. I think that we're just saying that is like takes so much pressure off, you know, anyone that thinks that they're 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old needs to be like the superstar in 3 years.
For sure. And Scott, you kind of alluded to that too, just in the thinking of, you know, that the player, when they get to the AHL, as an example, you know, the AHL is the second tier or the next tier down from the best league in the world. You know, put the KHL in there somewhere in probably second place, and then the AHL would be there after that. And the AHL describes themselves as a development league. So, you know, when you kind of work your way backwards from there, what you're learning in that sense, and that a lot of these kids in the AHL that maybe don't make that next jump, or in the ECHL that don't make that next jump, is maybe they've always been the 40 goal scorer on their team, and they've been the highlight reel in junior hockey, and they got drafted high because they put up 120 points in 50 games. But how many guys do we know that you could name off the top of your head that are super high draft picks that put up a ton of points and a ton of goals in junior hockey or wherever it is, but never made that jump, maybe because they didn't know their goalie's first name, or maybe they really weren't good on the wall, or, you know, they weren't a well-rounded player. And that's what I kind of think about when we look at young players and we project young players, so to speak. You know, our easy projection is the kid that scores the most points is the best player on the team. And that, you know, you see that everywhere. And we see that in, you know, the NHL. You pull up the leading scorers. So Nathan McKinnon has got to be pretty good. Look at how many points he puts up. Even if you've never seen him, you can tell, you know, Luka Doncic is probably a pretty darn good basketball player because he's averaging 38 points a game. You know, I'm not a basketball guy, but I can tell you that guy's probably pretty good, you know, but if they don't have the intangibles, if they don't have the extra stuff, if they don't know how to win a face-off, or they don't know how to kill a penalty, 40 goals in a lot of leagues will get you a lot of places until it stops. And there's a lot of NHL guys that scored 40, 50 goals in junior hockey that play regular NHL shifts, that if they get 6 goals a year, 10 goals a year, that's probably a boom year. But you also are asking the same guys in that room who you want to go to war with, that they're probably one of the first names on the list.
You know, it's funny. We've actually talked about that before. You know, those guys develop roles, right? The guys that could win faceoffs, right? I mean, how valuable is the guy in a 7-game series who can go in and win you a faceoff 80% of the time?
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, puck possession's huge at those levels.
Everybody
so those
would
guys,
want somebody like that. Yeah.
Right. Those roles that they fit into. And that's, and it's funny what you say about it. It's a team game, right? And that guy's contributing to the team.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw that just from the World Junior tournaments this past year, you know, watching from a Canadian perspective. I mean, we had a hard time with Latvia last year. We nearly lost to them again this year. We've lost to Czechia for the last 3 years. There's no, you know, if you, and this isn't against anybody that plays for the Chechen team, but if you were to take the top player on that team and put them in the list of players that are on the Team Canada team, I mean, are they on the bottom half of what you would compare them to? But ultimately, the second that game started in that semifinal, you knew something was off. You knew that Canada either wasn't ready for this, or, you know, that team was just playing a better system than, you know, a ton of individual players, which it tends to be, you know, from the comparisons that I've heard from people, that, you know, from my own personal opinion that I've learned from looking at teams in Europe and looking at teams in North America and seeing those differences, we have no question between Canada and the US, the best individual skill development in the world, and it's not close.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at putting a team together, you know, other countries are starting to catch up, and it's becoming pretty obvious on that kind of stage.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because I think that obviously we looked at it from the U.S. side, right? I thought the U.S. team was not as good of a team, not individually, but just as an overall team, as they were the last 2 years. You could see it.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't, there was, the chemistry was not there like it was the previous couple of years, in my opinion.
Right. And you can point that at a number of different ways. And this isn't to point fingers and say we do this wrong or we do this wrong. It's just simply observation, right? Where from our perspective, you know, there are so many individual skill coaches out there that were individualizing a team game, mostly for a lot of people that have their hands out, and there's a lot of money to be made in the game itself, right? Absolutely. So we all have a shooting coach, and we've all got a skating coach, and we've all got this and that. But what we're losing, or what we've lost, and this is something I've heard from the article I did on HS Riga in Latvia to the one that I just did in Quebec City, we've lost the hockey IQ of the game, because a guy can dangle through 3 guys like nobody else. The skill level that these kids have now is remarkable. But when they lose the puck and they go into the corner, they don't know what to do. They don't know where their teammates are. They don't know if they're just blindly throwing a pass into the middle of the ice or trying to pin it and wait for some help. They don't see those things, because that's hard to replicate in an individual skill session, which is the way that we've gone so quickly for, you know, over the last couple of years.
You know, that's so interesting that you're saying that, and I want to roll into the hockey factories from here, because I have a feeling what you're seeing overseas and their development models and how they do things ties in exactly to what we were just talking about. Would I be correct in saying that?
Very much so. Yeah. And it's a different game. It really is. And that's, I think, the biggest difference that I point out when I start kind of breaking that down, or picturing what that looks like in Europe. It's a very different style, and there's a different value behind it. But ultimately, they have a longer runway with their kids there, in a few different senses. So I use Jokerit in Finland as an example. That was one of the first ones that we did. One that's always stood out to me as extremely interesting, and you know, if you could replicate what Jokerit is doing anywhere, odds are you got a real good thing going.
Right.
When they talk about development, their concern is to try to build a team for their first team at the very end of the runway, right? So their runway is longer in the sense that they're looking to create 23 to 24-year-old players that are ready to make the jump to their first team. A lot of these clubs, just for budget restraints or whatever it is, mandate 50% of their first team has to be players that have come through their development program. So they're
Interesting.
aiming for a 23-year-old, where here we panic when they're 16 and they don't get drafted in the OHL.
Right.
It's a longer runway.
7 years,
Right.
7-year difference.
So what
7, 8
they're
years,
looking
yeah.
at, or what their concern is, they want to make sure that you've created a great environment for the kid, that, if they don't end up playing for the first team, that maybe one day, they'll have a kid and they'll say, I had such a great experience at Jokerit, we're going to sign you up at that club. Maybe they're going to own a business and they'll be willing to put money in towards a sponsor or season tickets.
Sure.
Maybe they want to coach. Maybe they want to give back a different way to the program because of the experience that they had. Where
They're creating a culture.
Yeah,
right?
where we're very much just trying to find the next hot thing and ride that out, and then we'll just find the next hot thing. So the runway's a little different, but it's also the way that they break things down and how they communicate to their players. Some of the ways that that are taught or programs are done in Europe, and this just isn't Jokerit specifically. This is a lot of the clubs that I've seen or kind of interacted with. The idea that in HS Riga, because they don't have the population we have in Canada or the US, they don't have a choice. They have to develop everybody within their program. They don't know that the 10-year-old who looks like a deer on skates isn't going to grow 6 inches and by 16, 17 be a fantastic defenseman, right?
Right.
So the way that they do that is developing much slower in the patterns that we do. We over inform kids because we have coaches who maybe don't have a lot of direction from their organization. They're given the keys to the program and do what you wish with it. There's no real end goal at the end of the year to say, we need you to check these boxes 1, 2, 3. You don't do that. The expectation then that point just becomes winning. So if you don't have the goals of, hey, our 9U team only needs to be able to learn how to skate backwards,
do X, Y, Z
and
by the end of the
you better
season,
hope that all those kids in U9 had a great experience, because if you failed as a coach, if all those kids don't come and try out next year, maybe that's all they need to do. And you look at Jokerit, I mean, the first year that they're involved in an organized program, their coaches are talking about how to play offense with the puck as the puck carrier. That's what they're talking about for the first year. So
now, what age would first year be?
We're
an age
talking
to that.
probably 7 or 8 years old.
Okay, good.
So
in Finland, this is what they do in Finland from age.
So that's their conversation. Up to you 9 or 9 years old, that's what they talk about, playing offense with the puck. The next year, they'll talk about playing offense without the puck. How do you create time and space? How do you get open? How do you be a good teammate? The year after that is defending the puck carrier. The year after that is defending the non-puck carrier. How do you take time and space away? So what they're teaching over 4 years is something we try to teach in 4 months, because at the end of our year, these kids have to be able to do this and ABC and look at this great because the parents are saying this about us, and the coach is kind of left to his own devices. So he's going to teach what he knows. And there's no organization. There's no long story development in that, where, again, you have a kid that comes in at U8, they leave your program at U18. The coach that they have at U8 is going to be 10% of their youth hockey experience. It's not a lot. We don't have to tell them everything we know all at once and information dump again. We're ultimately, the European clubs that I've seen better than the ones in North America do a better job of saying, when this kid leaves our program at U20, this is what they will have learned, as opposed to U9, U10, U11, U12, and looking at those as separate entities.
Let me ask a question about that. So when you talk about there being a particular aspect of the game that's taught over the course of a year, right? And I don't know that if I should take that very literally or just like as an example, but
I think it's pretty literally.
so if we're talking about like offensive play with the puck is dedicated to 1 year of a player's development. Intertwined with that is, or I guess I don't want to falsely believe that's the only thing you're going over in practice, right? So like these teams this will be a focus of what they're training these kids, but they're at the same time going to parallel path other aspects of the game as well. Is that fair to say?
To an extent, yes. So like there obviously is part of, they're learning what to do with the puck in certain situations in their own zone. It's not just a constant review of how we played offense with the puck, but what they will do is, you go into the locker room after a game and you win 9-0 or you lose 9-0. The conversation around that is, how did we play offense with the puck? So they're taking their time in that. Maybe there's other aspects of the game of coaching that they'll teach over the course of the year, but the theme of the year, it will always come back to playing offense with the puck or playing offense without the puck. And so they're much more deliberate with that. And they're much more, that they do take their time because they do have a longer runway that's perceived there than what we perceive we have here, where, ultimately, again, if we're all trying to create the best 26-year-old player, it's okay to not tell everybody everything every single year
immediately,
because I know when I was in grade 3, if you gave me all the information that I could handle up until whatever that would be, grade 8, grade 9, and what we're trying to teach, I mean, it's just from looking at it that way, there's no way that those kids can retain that much information or keep that information. As an adult in a conversation, science or studies have shown that if in our conversation you're able to recall after we're done here 40% of what I said, that's pretty good. I'm 44.
For an adult,
you can imagine a 9-year-old. I mean, a butterfly goes by, and it doesn't matter what you said unless Batman's walking through the door. They're not concentrated. It's just their brains aren't set for that yet. So I think we try to justify what we're doing as coaches by filling in the blanks with what we know, as opposed to looking at that longer view.
So sorry, James. Just one other thing I wanted to ask though. So like obviously, the what to do offensively when you have the puck. There's certainly there's a few things that are involved there. So one, there's like the IQ aspect of it. Right. But the other aspect is like, the technical skills, stick handling,
of course,
like shooting. So these are all things that'll come under the umbrella of, let's say, playing offense with the puck. Like they'll review stick handling, shooting as well. Like, so will they'll periodize, or they will, I guess, schedule the teaching of those hard skills as well?
They're most of the time when they're presenting those things, that's their theme for the year. So when, we're talking about, like you said, playing offense with the puck is not just getting the puck and shooting it immediately, right? There's so much to it. So what they'd be teaching over time is, maybe for the first part of the year, it's skating. And then it's, using your edges to get to the net, and then it's, stop and starts and, things like that for sure. And I, that's not the order that they do it. That's just simply,
of course,
speculation in that sense.
Yeah.
But the theme of it will always run to that, because the thinking again, and they use this, and we joke about it in North America in general, but I mean, I don't know what it's like in if it's like that in all areas around the US and Canada or whatever, but we don't introduce skating, or checking, I should say, until U13, U14.
Same.
So before then, we're not even playing hockey, guys. Like it's how everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? We're all great skaters. Until somebody's coming running at you and throwing their body into a glass wall, that'll change things. So what we're doing now at U10 is not necessarily preparing them for that, but we're giving them particular skills that will help them now, that when we introduce body checking or the clutching and grabbing or whatever that looks like, that you already have some skills in there that you'll be able to use when the time comes.
It's funny, Matt. When you're a youth hockey parent in the States, unless you've gone through it before with an older child, you don't think that way.
Mhm.
You don't think that hockey is, that you're not playing hockey up until checking.
Right.
You just don't. Right, Scott?
I would agree with that for sure.
Right? Whether it's USA Hockey that's not doing a good job of teaching that, or the organization, or whatever it is, but you're not told that as a parent, as a hockey parent.
I will
For
say
sure.
though, but part of that conversation is typically like the game changes when they hit puberty, and like
Right.
that's often called out and said, and no one would
Yes, that's
disagree
true.
with it. But at the same time, like the level of transparency that I think you're speaking to, Matt, I would also presume that not only is it within the organization and the coaching staff, but also with the families,
Mhm.
right? So they see that path over time. Unlike here, and I've got firsthand experience myself having coached a little bit, but like there is, at least in this area, like the American development model,
Mhm.
like is something that to get coaching credentials, you learn and you do coursework, and then beyond that, it's
In
up to the
theory.
organization to like
Yeah.
enforce it, and it's not the case. And so
That's just it.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
It's not enforced.
I was going to say that's just it. I mean, the USA ADM is one of, if not the best documents out there for athlete development. There's no question that the content that's in there, it's due for an update, just like everybody else is. But like the content in
good
there
stuff.
is true content. But
Yeah.
Scott, you called it out. After going through that, I mean, there's only so much you can do with that information in there. If your organization is not making it clear with what their philosophy goals are, if you are not being told that as a coach, if you're not having that coach as a conversation with a family, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if Scotty Bowman's coming into coach or if Connor McDavid's coming into play. It's
right.
not going to work, because one of the big things that I talk about with groups that I've met with and worked with before is just having that alignment within an organization. Because if you leave things up for translation as a coach to a family, and this is no fault of anybody, you leave something up for translation, you're going to get 17 different ways of translating
No doubt.
that, all to the benefit of that person's child. That's just the way we are as parents. I mean, I love the name of the podcast, because we're all crazy hockey dads. We are. Like Dwayne Blaze, who's a skills coach for the Red Wings, I've had a chance
Sure.
to interact with a couple of times. And that's where I heard that line from him, and I just started laughing, because it's just true. Like we're all crazy hockey parents. There's no doubt about it. The ones that succeed are almost the ones that are able to shelve that somehow. But I can tell you, like I said, my little guy, I use him as an example in all these kind of conversations and stuff. He played as a 7-year-old. He played U9 hockey as a goalie. Loves playing goalie. Hates his dad, obviously, because of I give him that all the time. He hates it. But I told him, like, man, if you want to do this, you can do this, man. This is not going to go well, because you're learning, and it's just not, man. There's going to be nights that you're going to get sunburned in the back of your neck. Like, it's going to happen, but you're going to get a ton of shots. You're going to get a ton of experience, and we're with you all the way. We go to tournaments. We've got, I'm standing next to parents that are shouting to their players on the other team to just shoot anywhere because this goalie is terrible. Like we hear it everyone. They're like, he's, we're all crazy hockey parents. I could very easily have snapped on that guy and thrown him against the wall for talking that way about a 7-year-old. But also, like, he come off the ice. Did you have a good time, bud? Oh yeah. Did you see that one save I made? Like, hey, man, let's, there's a part in the back of your head.
That.
Yeah, there's a part in the back of your head when you look at the scoreboard and you're like, I'm glad you're excited about that save, because the 7 goals that you gave up in that game were terrible. but guess what? You had a great time. You want to come back to practice the next day.
It's all that matters.
That's all that matters. That's all we're trying to do, So I know it's a long-winded way of kind of getting around where we're talking about, but if we're not having those conversations out of the gate and being realistic with parents, with our coaches, with our organization as a whole, then we leave gaps. And when you leave gaps, parents want the best for their kids in whatever they do. They wanted the best in school. They want to go to the best universities. They want to have the best jobs. They want to have the best hockey experience. And yeah, we all want them to be superstars. Like, of course, that's part of being a parent. There was a great quote that I just heard recently from Steve Harvey talking about his dad and his connection to his father. And it was something along the lines of, when his father passed away, he'd realized that the one man that wanted him to be better than himself was
his
gone.
dad.
And that's what we try to do as parents. But if we're not given the information, if we're not given as parents the tools from our coaches and from our organization of what to expect, we're going to reevaluate things ourselves, and it's not going to be good enough. And that's where you get the rumblings in the parking lot and the interactions, fan to fan and parent to parent and coach to player and all that. I talk about the player, parent, coach triangle in my presentations, and that part of it is, if one of those sides of the triangle falls, the whole thing falls.
Absolutely.
And what's so interesting about this and is that it's like a negative feedback loop, and it's just like, and it's like families don't know what's happening. They tell their own story to themselves. It's not self-serving. They get mad. They tell the coach. They tell the organization. The organization hears enough about the coach. They move the coach on, and it's like you don't have anyone steady. You don't have this alignment. Like if the organizations and were to I don't know if like mandate's the right word, but if there was more transparency about what the progression of learning was throughout the organization, and this is what your kid's going to learn day one and day, 10,001.
Yeah.
I think it would create a lot more transparency that would help connect dots and potentially not have all this turmoil and turnover.
It sounds simple the way you lay it out, Scott, doesn't it? Like it really does sound.
I know easier said than done. 100%.
But it's a perfectly logical way to do it. Like from an organization standpoint, we just introduced open borders in Ontario this year, so it's mayhem. Now instead of playing in my neighborhood where I have to play because of where I live, I can take my kids. Now. I can go. If I wanted to drive 4 hours to Toronto, I could drive. I can go anywhere I want.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Now whatever program you're in is the worst program in the world, and then there's so many other great programs everywhere else. So I've told programs and I've told organizations, we all have mantras. We all have, this is our club philosophy and it looks good when we put it on our website. But to your point, Scott, this is what your child's experience is going to be like in our club. At U10, we're going to talk about ABC. We're expecting this from our coaches. We're expecting this from our players and our families. In U11, we are adding this. We're adding this. This is the pipeline. This is what we're creating from U8 to U18. You're either on the bus or you're off the bus. But there's no question in what this is going to look like. Because, like you said, the trickle down from an organization to a coach, I've sat in coach interviews. I've sat in year-end conversations where there's no guardrails, there's no expectations, there's no, hey, it wasn't like we're evaluating you as a coach because we told you at the beginning of the year that you have to make sure that all your kids can skate backwards. And there's 4 kids out there that can't, which means you didn't do a very good job as a coach. There isn't that explanation. For an organization standpoint, understandably so, it's hard to find coaches. It's just hard to find people that want to do this, especially on a volunteer basis when they got full-time jobs and everything else. So, excuse me. So to my point, the reason that coaches leave organizations and the reason we have a hard time with finding coaches is not parents. It's not having to deal with all of that. It's simply support. Our coaches do not feel supported. They don't have the tools from an organization or from, a coaching platform or a mentor or something like that they're able to either handle situations or come up with a roadmap or explain that to a family. Whatever. They're given the keys to, here's your U11 team, go run your team. If you're not telling the coach what his expectations are from an organization, it always falls back to winning. And the one thing to make crystal clear in this, and I know that you guys talk about this as well in your podcast all the time too. Like, winning is part of this. We all want to win. Just because I want every player to have the same experience growing up as a youth hockey player or soccer player, whatever, doesn't mean I don't care about winning or losing. But there's a time and place for it, and there's a lot to learn from that. Where, as you know, as a 10-year-old or U10 coach, maybe that's when you're starting to have those conversations with guys. The way we lost was not acceptable because we didn't do these 3 things that we've talked about all year that are our keys for the year. You know, how we handle wins and how we handle losses is a big part of life in general. So if we're not arming parents and arming coaches as an organization with the tools that they need, that's where, like you said, Scott, that's where there's going to be miscommunication. That's where there's going to be gaps, and that's where we're going to ultimately lose people.
You know, it's funny. Scott and I talked about this before, and we had Bob Mancini from USA Hockey on.
Yeah.
I don't know what, Scott, like a month and a half ago, something like
Yeah,
that.
that's about right.
And you know, we were talking about the ADM model, and you know, he was kind of going through it all for us, and we're like, you know, it's awesome. And we said to him, you know, are there certain pockets in the U.S. where they don't follow that because there's kind of no teeth for USA Hockey to enforce it?
Right.
Right. And he said your newer hockey playing locations in the U.S., like California, Arizona, Florida, they adopt the ADM model.
Yeah,
they're into it.
Yeah, it's the Northeast where we are, that they've been doing this for a while. They don't want to hear about how, you know, the ADM model that is kind of really resisting kind of putting that into play in their organizations. And Scott and I have mentioned this before, and I know you're a big alignment guy. There's, in my opinion, there's no alignment in our area. Our U8, U9, they don't talk to each other. They teach whatever they want. There's no structure. And I'm assuming that's the organization, right? I'm assuming USA Hockey has a structure, but these organizations are not following it.
Right.
And it's almost like, this is going to sound harsh, but it's almost like the financial aspect of youth hockey is almost crushing that, right? They're just going to do what they want, get kids in and out. And you know what? If your kid wants to go leave and go somewhere else, no problem. We'll fill the void with Johnny instead of Joey.
Yep.
You know? And that's a problem, I think. And it's hurting kids because, you know, again, I don't think my kid, it doesn't stack like it does when they're in school.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, none of it's really like compares to any other part of a child's life or a person's life. You know, I don't run around bragging that I've got the best 11-year-old math student. You know, it sounds funny, right? Like, but you ask a guy that a parent U12, if their kid is a good kid and puts up a lot of points, you know, you're not going to have to ask him how the kid's doing. They're ready to tell you when you come and say hi to them, right? But you're 100% right in that point, James. Like, and I've done articles on the Dallas Stars Elite program. I've done one on the Arizona Junior Coyotes. We've done Shattuck St. Mary's. So we've done a few different places. And the one that always stands out is one we recently did in Hermantown, Minnesota, where Minnesota still operates under the community-based model. It's the only one left. And you know, Mike Snee, who works with the Minnesota Wild, who was with College Hockey Inc. for a long time, talked with him and that, and he was very generous with me and sharing information and stuff. He just sent me stuff on the NHL draft. There's more kids getting drafted that are from Minnesota than any other state in the country still. Yeah. And they're the only ones that have abandoned that model. And you're right, James, to an extent. The scary thing about hockey is it's becoming a rich man's game. Which we see everywhere, and the what we do, I think, so poorly in North America compared to Europe. And again, it's because of what we have access to compared to what they have access to. You know, some of the numbers are quite surprising. There's more ice arenas in the GTA in the Greater Toronto area than there is in the entire country of Germany. Germany's got 83 million people. Canada's got 38 million. But there's, in Germany, as an example, I did Young Alder Mannheim for one of our hockey factories. They have to develop everybody. So they develop great teams. And if at 9 years old, this kid's not a great skater or he doesn't have a great shot, then they're working with him because at some point they're going to need him, right? Like that's just the math of what numbers are. It's going to drop off at some point. If you've got 100 kids that sign up at U8, you're probably pretty lucky if you can put a team together at U18 with those kids. There's going to be kids that lose interest. There's kids that move. There's all of those different things that play into it. So from a development model, the Europeans are much more invested in developing year over year, as opposed to what we are doing here and just trying to find the best 9-year-old and the best 11-year-old, where, there's a kid somewhere out there who truly, number one, probably can't afford to play.
Yeah.
And number two, when they're 22 might be phenomenal, but at 11, they don't make an elite team, and the development that they get from their coaching or their organization is so vastly different, they'll never get to catch up.
Right.
Oh, that's very interesting. Can you go more into that? So the kid that doesn't make those elite teams, you don't think he will ever catch up to the kid who made one of those elite teams? Because why? Explain that to me.
I think that, for me, I think that comes with coaching. I think there's, you get the extra ice, a couple of extra practices in a week. You get the more experience and the more in depth in that. Where in house league, I think it's a bad rap in the sense that, it's considered fun and, less competitive, and it is all
serious.
of those things.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that your next great player doesn't have to play at elite level all the way across. I think where we lose some of these kids is, in that drop off of what elite hockey costs, what it costs to go to 3 or 4 tournaments a year and have to stay in hotels.
I see what you're
and
saying.
all this.
Okay, right.
So for some people, that's just not an option, and we're not giving that kid an option because we're so quick to say, this 12-year-old is phenomenal, where there may be another 12-year-old who, if you gave him the same type of coaching,
he would turn into the same player.
Might be one day, but we just never know, because the way we look at it is there's always somebody else to fill that spot, where in some countries in Europe, there isn't. In hockey in Germany is probably the 5th or 6th favorite sport. If you lose a kid that doesn't want to play hockey anymore, there isn't another kid just waiting to take their spot.
That's going to fill that spot. Right.
Well, it's funny. We joke, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but like people say like the best hockey players are those that can afford it, not necessarily the best hockey players.
Yeah.
But one of the things, as you talk about the factories, and perhaps if you could just spell that out a little bit more for our listeners who might not know exactly what we're talking about, or if you could just give a little bit of a deeper dive of kind of like what those your research and your time spent going over those programs, what that looked like, and kind of like what were the takeaways. And at some point, I'd love to just also go into a little bit more like overseas, and maybe, you talked about Finland earlier, but I'm sure our listeners, especially with the Olympics coming up, are going to be exposed to, and the World Juniors just happened, seeing different styles of play, kind of like what you've kind of gathered from different countries.
Yeah. So the idea came from Aaron Wilbur, who's the founder and CEO of the Coaches site. I had the opportunity to interview him on his podcast because he's talked to so many great coaches. The premise around it was like, what have you learned just through osmosis of having these conversations, right?
Yeah, sure.
He had asked if I'd ever done some writing, and fortunately I had, and he gave me, as I said, I think the best blessing that I've been given in my hockey career, so to speak, in getting to do these hockey factories. So, we came up with a short list of the best programs in the world, made some connections here and there. And then most of it was done through Zoom calls and interviews and things like that. And then just transcribing, what they would be talking about and kind of putting that in place. So, we've done, as I said, we've done 15 now. There's a handful in Canada and the US. We've done Finland, Sweden, Germany, Latvia, Slovakia, Switzerland, and again, like what we're trying to see is the not necessarily to say that one is better than the other, or I feel like when I do these podcasts, I come on and it's simply this is why Canada and the U.S. are not doing well, and this is what Europe is doing so well. But there's a happy medium somewhere in the middle of that. Like I said, we're incredible skill developers. Our individual players are unbelievable. Where the team structure that a club at HS Riga in Latvia has, that when we looked at the World Junior team that they had last year that came in and surprised everybody, beat Canada in the round robins, that more than half of that team came from HS Riga or had played there at some point. So that program is obviously doing something right. What are they doing that from a philosophy standpoint, from a coach development standpoint, what are they doing that is making them have that much success? Because yes, we could have had Macklin Celebrini play in the World Juniors for us in Canada, and that would have made a huge difference. Of course, no one's debating that or questioning that, but ultimately, how does a country that has how many 50% more than that less in population come to that stage and play well, and we bragged about being hockey first in Canada, and that will ultimately, the results haven't been there from that level in that tournament. And that's not to say that we're not developing players well. That's just saying other countries have found ways to do it with what they have, and that's really the interesting part, or where I really love going with Hockey Factories is, tell me something that you do at Frölunda in Sweden that we could do anywhere, but also that no one could do as good as you. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it's all kind of come from, or the idea behind those articles and the work that I'm doing today.
And what are some of those things? I mean, what's the major difference between like European hockey and North American hockey? What are the major things that you see that like that happy medium? I mean, we obviously have the skill development, they have the longer runway and the team-based stuff. What would be like the ultimate developmental model?
To me, you both kind of hit on it already. It's the communication. The Jokerit in Finland describes themselves as a community of coaches. And what that looks like is once a month, whatever it is, they've got everybody from the U8 to the first team coach in a room. This is what we're doing. This is what's going well. This is what's not going well. The U11 coach says, my kids aren't great at this. Okay, well, let's look at how we're teaching it in the years before that so that they're ready to execute on this. Here I feel like and I've mentioned it a couple of times, we silo ourselves into, if I'm the U13 coach, I'm worried about my team and my team only. Right. And I'm going to teach you what I know about this and that, where it's not, hey, what were your kids really good at last year? Because maybe I don't have to teach you or work on edges, or maybe our system is pretty good. Maybe we don't have to spend as much time on that. Maybe we're working on some of the harder stuff this year. Maybe we're adding to it, but that comes from an organizational level. I think that club in particular, the clubs that we focused on in Europe and the ones that we focused on here in North America as well, do so well is there is a clear linear path for the players that are in that program. And it starts with the coaches are aligned. They understand what the other coaches are teaching. They know what the expectations of themselves are. Because if you can, imagine you take that kind of model and say them, you're the coach that's teaching offense with the puck, and that's your year, and that's what you're building around. And just imagine what you can do with that when you as a coach know the only thing that you're really adding to the toolbox this year is tools to play offense with the puck. Don't worry about the defensive part, because in a couple of years, we've got a coach that's going to do a bang up job on that too. This is what we're focused on this year, where, I think it's left to the coaches are left to their own devices. Like I said, with lack of support, they just run their team and in that case, where we go to at the end of the year to determine success or failure is wins and losses. and it's just not the right path. I couldn't tell you how many times in the articles that I've had to write or had the opportunity to write that I've had to ask coaches, none of you have said the word winning. When does winning start playing into this? And
Oh,
the first thing
interesting.
they say is, trust me, we want to win, but at U11, it doesn't matter if we
No, it
win.
doesn't.
Our wins are, hey, we did a great job at this that we've been working on all year at practice. One of the great ideas that I've seen coaches do or look at is just having a bingo card. And it's, here are the things that we're talking about this year. When we do it in a game, our assistant coach is X in that box, X in that box. And at the end of the game, if we lose 7-1 or we win 7-1, if we've got a line, if we've got 4 squares, that's what we're celebrating, because that's the message that we're getting across.
So so it's interesting that you made the connection between like that the alignment and the communication from like that's what's happening overseas as well as what you're seeing in the hockey factories here in North America. Are there other things within let's say the United States and Canada that are there other similarities in what these different programs are doing that are helping them become standout?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that it does all come back to the communication, but to me, it's from an organization standpoint, it's just a clear philosophy of, ultimately playing the long game. This is what to expect when you play in our program, kind of like we were talking about before, and the conviction behind it. I had a chance to talk with Eric Silverman, who was with the Dallas Stars Elite program, and he has been there from the very beginning. And the one thing I was really intrigued with that, because that program's not that old, was the success is always delayed. So, you've got a kid that comes in at U7, and this is what we're teaching, and we're teaching them this every year. You're not really going to know if what you've taught has created a good hockey player until maybe they're 14 or 15. And then you got to be back and say, oh boy, we got to fix this. We got to fix this. We got to fix this. And the commonality in that, and the way Eric had said that with some of the other ones, is the constant, the openness to revision, I guess is one way of saying it within an organization. And you talk about it, Barry, where you are. And I think we could probably all name a program or an area that's like that. This is the way we do it because this is the way we've always done it. And we've had success, and that's great. Well, that's
right.
That's nice, but there's so much out there now of different ways to do things that, to me, from a coach standpoint and from an organization standpoint, if you're not developing as a coach, if you're not learning as a coach, trying new things, challenging yourself, you can't expect that from your players. You can't expect your players to develop if you're not also developing. So I think there's a lot of investment in coach development as well, from in a European standpoint, where that's the lifeblood, right? That your program is based off of your coaches. So if we aren't doing our service to our coaches in the way that we're giving them support, we're giving them tools, we're giving them, whether it's through the coach's site or, you're going on YouTube or things like that. I mean, there is no shortage of information out there.
That's for sure.
But you have to, as an organization, you have to specifically invest in that year over year over year over year over year to see the benefits of what that looks like. And boards are normally done year at a time. A coach is only there for a year at a time. It's hard to sell people on a 7-year vision when all we think about is 1 year at a time.
Yeah. So it's really the organizations that are in North America that are not taking care of business, which they are overseas. That's really what I'm hearing from you, right?
That, when we're looking at that compared to way that those programs work compared to some programs that we see just in everyday life. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are probably any number of programs in Europe that are doing a terrible job on development.
Sure.
And there's probably a ton of programs that we don't talk about in hockey factories, or we're not mentioning here, that are doing things right in North America and Canada, the US, of course. It's more of a general statement than anything else. But ultimately, I think there's just more of an investment in the long term in Europe when maybe the years have to be adjusted when we're thinking about numbers and ages and stuff like that.
Right.
Like, do we have time to wait until they're 15 years old to teach them how to play defense with the puck carrier? Of course not. But there's certainly things that we can do along the way that maybe introduce that, but invest in the whole player, the whole person, as opposed to always looking for the kid that just skates faster than everybody else and gets 8 or 10 breakaways a game. I always say that kid is an elite player.
So I'm curious. I want to turn to World Juniors because that just finished, right?
Mhm.
And obviously the U.S. and Canada both got bounced out. With all the skill that's there with both of those
Sure.
teams. Are they still screaming in Canada about like, oh, like we're doing this wrong, or like because it's funny. I don't want to say the U.S. and Canada are doing it wrong, but is the business aspect really just crushing it here? Because I know overseas, a lot of the hockey is subsidized, right? I mean, and here it's a little different. It's more
Yeah.
capitalistic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if that were to change, I mean, am I right in saying that, Matt? Am I right that the business aspect of it here on North America is different than it is overseas? And is that why we don't do things like they do, essentially?
It's certainly going to be part of it. It's certainly going to be part of it for sure.
Yeah.
And I think, when you talk about how we responded as a group, like, again, same thing, made a post on LinkedIn that has gotten a lot of comments from a lot of different angles. There's like I said, if we had Macklin Celebrini and we had the 4 other kids that are in the NHL, that it would have been a different
Right.
story,
Right.
but it's also, the personality of the team. The comment made by the Czechia head coach after the game about working harder was something that really resonated to a lot of people. Did we have a bit of a country club kind of group as opposed to a gritty team that was trying to fight against a mountain, as opposed to being the team that was expecting to win because of how
Right.
skilled we are? There's a big mindset shift to that, and oddly enough, and I hadn't learned this until was doing the article on HS Riga and Latvia as a whole in hockey, but Bob Hartley was the national team coach for Latvia for a number of years, the old NHL coach. He is credited really when he went over there of not just bringing in a new system, but bringing in a mindset that, he says, I came and watched these kids play at the World Juniors in Canada, and they were already losing 2-0. They didn't think like, okay, great, we're playing Canada.
Right.
If we can keep it under, the mindset at that point was, a losing 8-6 is probably better than losing 4-0. So it's wide open. There's no, they played a completely different game, where Bob kind of came in and was able to develop a mindset amongst these players that, end of the day, yes, Canada is here and Latvia is here, population wise and enrollment wise and financially and all that. But end of the day, when we play the game, it's 5 guys on the ice and 5 guys on the ice and 2 goalies. And all you got to say is that the guy across from you is not going to beat you today. And he drilled that mindset into it. And it's,
Right.
It's changed. It changed the way Latvian hockey is organized completely. So when you look
Right.
at different factors of why, Canada reacted a certain way or what they think a certain way, I think it was certainly an eye-opener that perhaps we don't have a broken system, but we have a system that needs to be reviewed. We need to look at this a little bit differently. Not to,
Right.
we don't need somebody to come out and say we're doing this wrong. We need somebody to come out and say we're going to learn different ways to do this,
Well,
and then we go from there.
Look, quick question about just on these like more like the best on best tournaments, when you have countries, I don't know, Latvia and perhaps Sweden. I don't know. You would know better than I certainly, but potentially a lot of those players year round are playing together more often, as opposed to the U.S. and Canada that are assembling teams closer to the tournament. They're coming from all different coaches, all different leagues. To what extent would you attribute other countries' successes to perhaps the amount of time they've spent playing together leading up to these tournaments versus a team that's put together, much closer to tournament time?
It's a great question. I think there's a lot to it. I think there's a lot to the fact that those kids are familiar with each other, that they, maybe not just in the system that they play, but in the country they play in, they may have a particular system. They may have a certain way of playing things. There's different, excuse me, different types of players and different aspects of the game, but we know what a finished team looks like in general. It's a puck possession team, it's a skill team, it's a team as opposed to individual outstanding players. So I think there's a lot of merit to that for sure. And there, I think even in a bigger picture, certainly not suggesting that Canada has a certain way of playing hockey everywhere, or the U.S. is always doing it this way. But, I take from that, like you said, and this was a conversation I was having not that long ago, it would never happen, but wouldn't it be interesting if our World Juniors were in Christmas time like it always was, and we made our selections in October, and for the month of half of November and half of December, you went to Canada, you went to Calgary where Hockey Canada's headquarters are, and you worked as a team for a month and a half or a month or whatever before the tournament. Do I think if Canada did that, just like everybody else did, we'd be having this conversation to be very different? I feel like Canada would steamroll people, but the US would steamroll people, if they did it that way. You're not taking these kids out of their junior programs. You're not, all of that stuff.
Colleges.
But in saying that, to your point, Scott, I think there's a lot of value to that. And that comes from the thinking or idea around, there isn't a lot of hockey players here. There isn't a lot of opportunity in all of these different towns like there is in different places. If we all play together and we're familiar with each other and we're building this team environment, it's going to help us when the skill isn't equatable.
Sure.
It's funny, Matt. You mentioned like the community model that has overseas, which is kind of, where all these European countries kind of follow. And obviously you also mentioned that they do it in Minnesota. So, and you mentioned College Hockey Inc. We had Sadie Lundquist on from College Hockey Inc. And we went over the community model with her extensively, right? And we were saying, can that be put in any state in the U.S. and actually have it followed? And I'm trying to think what we kind of I think the answer was essentially yes.
Like in theory, it can be replicated, but in practicality, it could be very difficult for, just starting with the current infrastructure and state of,
for sure. But there's, and this is where I kind of go back to my conversations with Mike Snee as well, is there's no reason it can't. And when you look at the numbers, it should entice somebody to look at things that way. But there's a lot of different, there's a lot of programs in a lot of states and a lot of different areas where it's easier to, and he used Iowa as an example. It's easier for a program in Iowa to come and take a kid from Minnesota than to develop a kid the entire time that they're playing youth hockey in Iowa. The other part of that too is you're bringing somebody from the outside. You're now taking the place of somebody who's in your community that's coming through all the way through. There's a lot of merit behind the community, the community model. And I know, like you said, you talked to Sadie and got into that a lot. So I'm not necessarily advocating for that one way or another, but what I think would be interesting is even in a city, even if you took maybe a non-traditional market of hockey that wanted to get into hockey or whatever that looks like in that business sense. If even within a community you were to say, you're playing for your particular neighborhood, we have tournaments within the city. We're not flying to New York. We're not flying to Florida. Everything's going to be kind of in-house. And we're going to do this as a city, as opposed to a USA Hockey umbrella or program of that kind of caliber. But we're also, James, like you were saying before about money and things that we're kind of trained for. We're all trained to look for that AAA logo or that elite
Yes.
program, and
Yes.
anything out of that isn't. But when you look at the Minnesota model, there's 140 programs in that state. There's
That's right.
8 AAA programs in the state of Michigan, and that's a lot in compared to some other states. So which place is more likely to develop the most players realistically is the one that has the most opportunity for the longest amount of time. And that's where we kind of go back to Europe when we're saying, the most opportunity for the longest amount of time, because they
Right.
don't have the choice. You take a city like, let's say Salt Lake City, they've got a brand new NHL team, all that. I mean, if Salt Lake City decided that they were going to run all of their youth hockey development out of Salt Lake City,
Right.
it would be very interesting to see in 5, 6, 7 years
What it
that
would
looks
look like.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's too much of a business. I don't think there's too much money in it. I don't think you'll ever see that because of the money factor behind it.
At
Right.
the end of the day, I think that's the hard part for
Yeah.
guys like you and for me to swallow, and
Yeah.
that just from a youth perspective, like I
Because
said,
it hurts
bringing
the
it back
kids
to the
ultimately, right?
yeah,
Just
bringing
hurts
it back
kids
to the
at end of
beginning.
day.
I played baseball as a kid. I had no idea what my parents paid for it. It wouldn't have been much for
Right.
registration and all that.
Right.
But even my little guy is aware enough. We go to a sports store near our house because he likes to daydream and stuff, and he goes right to the back of the section where the goalie pads are, and he grabs the goalie pad and he says, "Oh, this wasn't bad. This is only $400." I said, "Yeah, but I'm assuming you're going to want one on your right leg too, right?" And,
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, and ultimately, I think the hard part of that,
Yeah.
what's hard to stomach, which there isn't going to be an answer for, is this game is not getting any cheaper, and
No,
it's
not.
it's getting more and more people away from the game than into it, where there's going to be a sport, it's going to be cricket, or it's going to be volleyball, or it's going to be pickleball, or
Something's going to fill
something's going to
the
come.
void. Yes.
I've got my stepdaughter plays soccer and basketball, and she's super active in all this. She goes to, she registers for basketball. It's $250. She's got to have nice
Pair of
shoes and a ball.
sneakers.
Like, that's it. That's all she's got to do.
I know, it's nothing.
It's scary, and it's I don't know that next generation. I think our generation is fine. We're encouraging that and all that, but even with kids, these days in the entertainment, or where they find their entertainment, things like that, it's not going to be an easy sell to spend $800 to play house league hockey somewhere, when I can also spend $250 and they're still getting active, and
Same
they're still
thing.
staying off their
That's true.
screens, and they're still learning
That's
the same
right.
kind of thing, and teamwork and winning and losing and working for something bigger than yourself. And hockey's going to price itself out of what hockey really was.
So,
Yeah.
I just want to kind of circle back to something you brought up in the beginning when you're just kind of talking about yourself, and that you're a board member on the Riverside Minor Hockey.
Yeah, with the Riverside Minor Hockey Association. Yeah.
So as a board member there, and obviously the work that you're doing, like what are you taking back to the organization, and like kind of like what like maybe best practices that you've seen are you hoping to implement, talking about, like how is that kind of translating from what you're researching and doing, and kind of bring that to reality, if that makes sense.
It does, for sure. It's challenging for me, because I'd love to bring 75 different ideas that I've got into this and see it change overnight, and now it's working and it's great. But it really has to be done. Again, it's baby steps. It's incremental things. When we're going to be pretty soon looking at interviewing coaches for next season. When was the last time we did a deep dive into what our interview process looks like and the questions that we're asking? And, instead of saying, would you, if you were the coach, would you cut your kid? Or, what do you think of what system would you be coaching, or whatever? They all say yes. They're oh yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. But instead of asking those questions, it's what is a kid going to get out of you being their coach this year? What types of things are you going to teach that kid that is going to help him when he's 18, 19, 20 years old applying for a job or applying for college or things like that. You know, maybe we're asking different questions this time around. Maybe we're going to get different people from that. And then you get, you can start adding pieces to that. Okay, now we've hired similar minded coaches. Now we've got to put them in the same room together. Now we have to get them talking. Hey, I know that you coached this guy last year and he was a bit of a problem, but then by the end of the year, he was really, really good. How did you get in? How did you build that relationship with that kid so that next year when he's my kid, I know what you've done. We can pick up where we left off instead of having to redo the whole thing, So it's little pieces that ultimately can build into a big puzzle. And
Yeah.
like we said, the
Over
one thing that
time.
we struggle with from a youth sports perspective more than anything else is just being patient with it. If we start working with a kid at U8 this year, and we're teaching him individual things all the way through. We're just adding things into his toolbox on a regular basis. What that kid turns into at 18, he may not be an NHL player, but I can assure you he's going to love his time here. He's going to be a good kid. He's going to be respectful. He's going to be somebody that you're going to want to hire. He's somebody you're going to want to sit next to in school.
They'll have the
And
life skills.
they're good.
Yeah.
This is what our gift and what we've been able to give them.
100%.
At the end of the day, it has nothing to do with hockey.
Zero. But it makes him a better human being, and that's all that matters.
Right. Because those are the kids that we're putting, we're spitting back out, right? And you guys know this just like anybody else. Other than parents and teachers, the person that probably has the biggest influence on the kids' lives in the ages that we're talking about is their coach, is their sports coach. And I had the principal at Notre Dame University in Saskatchewan that we did a feature on, who was a player, played there, was a captain, is now a principal. And making those comparisons between teacher and coach and leader and all of that. And his line that he had said that always stuck with me is, it's such a dangerous position in a sense where you're one poorly worded message away from turning a kid off of school for life. Or turning him off of hockey for life. There's a great quote, and it was John O'Sullivan, I think, that has it in one of his books or one of his podcasts, who does a great job. As a coach, your influence is never neutral. When you walk into a room, if you've had a horrible day at work, you were fighting with your wife, your kids aren't listening, whatever it is, if you walk into that room and you're in a bad mood, and you say something or you bark at a kid the wrong way or something like that, you don't know what that could do to that kid. But if you're able to separate that and you can come into the door, and this is a positive place and a positive environment, we're trying to create a culture. At the end of the year, I can remember 2 baseball coaches that I had as a kid. I never turned pro, obviously not in the major leagues, but I know that those coaches helped me towards where I'm going today. And I think if you asked 95% of the coaches out there of what they want or what they hope the kids get out of their experience with them coaching, is that they simply help them be a better person, and I think we lose that in everything we talk about and everything that we joke about who does this better and who does this, and we're struggling here. And all that. End of the day, what we're trying to do is just create the best youth sports experience we can for the kids that we have in our system or in our homes or whatever for as long as possible, because we all know as sports fans how many tools you can learn from playing a sport, individual or a team, that are going to help you when you're somebody's boss or you work for somebody, or, you're a parent or you're a spouse or anything like that.
Hockey does a good job of doing that, I think.
Does a great job. I don't think there's, of everything bad that we've said about hockey today, I don't think that there's another sport that does it better than hockey. And I think you see that in the players at the highest level. There's obviously there's good and bad in every organization and level, whatever, but I don't think there's a better athlete that gives back, that recognizes that has that community aspect in mind than hockey players.
I agree. Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. That's actually a great place to wrap this up.
Perfect.
We've kept you on for about an hour and a half.
I know.
So
thank you so much.
Oh, good.
Thank
No,
you for
I
taking the time.
could keep going. Like I was saying to you guys earlier, with my background in hockey or in broadcasting, I should say, you give me 2 minutes or 2 hours, I can fill the time. And now you're talking about something that I've really gotten passionate about. So,
and I have to tell you, I have like a list of notes here that I didn't even get to get into. So like I'm gonna have you back on. Yeah, I have like a pad right here.
That's great.
And this pad that I didn't even get to get into yet.
Oh no.
You know, so we're gonna have you back on. This was great, Matt. Thank you so much.
Thank you
this
so
is
much.
very
Really
insightful.
appreciate it.
For sure.
I love to have you back on like after the Olympics so we can kind of go through this stuff again.
Oh, that would be a great idea.
Yeah.
Actually.
For sure. I'm game if you guys are, for sure.
Yeah.
That would be
100%.
great.
And
Yeah.
before we go, just where can people find you? Find your work? Either on the internet or get in touch with you.
Sure. So the best way to find me now is my brand new website. Less than a week old. It's mattdumouchelle.com. It's got information in there on how to get in touch with me and stuff, and some of the things that I've worked on with organizations and coach development and family support and things like that. I post fairly often on LinkedIn. And then the coachessite.com is going to have the House of Hockey Factories is there. Some other individual articles and stuff that we've done, and not to promote a podcast on a podcast, but we've also launched the coaching crossover podcast
Definitely
on the Coaches Site too, which has been really exciting. So, there's a lot of exciting things going on, but I'd love to help or kind of work through any problems or situations that any has, because that's, like I said, I didn't get a chance to play hockey as a kid. Hockey has given me a lot more than I could ever give back. So this is just my way of hopefully doing that.
You're doing a good job, Matt.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I appreciate
thank you so much.
Thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate this. Was great. We're definitely doing this after the Olympics.
Awesome.
We're going to have you back on.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks,
guys.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody, welcome back from another amazing interview. Dude, we keep on bringing in like guests that honestly I'm feeling so lucky that we have opportunities to talk to people from so many different backgrounds and experiences, and certainly super interesting to listen to Matt and his experience. Especially even talking about like, how overseas and that the IQ, like, how they go about their programming, for youth hockey, how like, this is what you're going to learn this season, and there's transparency, and they lay it out. And of course, that's not going to be, the only thing that they learn, but they keep on building. So when a coach takes on a team from the year prior, they know exactly where they left off in terms of like their training. And it's just, it makes so much sense, right?
Kind of makes you wonder why we don't do that here.
Well, I mean,
I know why, but I wonder why they don't kind of push that more to try to get us to be those types of models, right?
Well, it's also different. I think, and I could be mistaken, but I think a lot of like the rinks are like government owned and operated, and I think that there's less private business wound up into at least like maybe the ice rinks potentially. I don't know enough about those economics, but yeah, I mean, clearly the business side of things is where, things start to get more difficult to have, like even the USA Hockey today, like they'd have to be such a massive organization to go out and like, spend enough time with each organization in each region. You know what I mean?
True.
For accountability purposes.
Yes, true. And I think that kind of came to light a little when we talked to Heather Mannix from USA Hockey, right?
Yeah.
We have not released that interview yet. That's coming on a future episode, but that was one of the things that Heather mentioned, right? Not to kind of, let the cat out of the bag, but Heather was saying that, it's a very large country with a lot of regions, and they only have so much manpower to kind of go around to those regions and, really, really have their finger on the pulse of what everybody's doing. Right? Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas in other countries where obviously there's a much smaller population, they have an easier time doing that. And like you were mentioning, we're more of a capitalistic system here, right? The government doesn't own our rinks. The rinks aren't owned by like the local communities, like they are. Well, I guess they are in Minnesota, but it's not like that anywhere else in the U.S. But yeah, our setup is different than theirs. And their players, I think, benefit from it, in my opinion. Right? We may have
Yeah.
more players by volume, just because we're a much larger country, but I sometimes wish that our players here were kind of more taught on those models, if you want me to be truly honest. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
You
I
know?
mean, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I mean, can you imagine what our players would look like if they just literally spent if every single organization spent, your Squirt minor year learning X, your Squirt major year learning Y. Um, I just wonder how much more skilled our kids would be. I don't know.
That's hard to say. I think the thing that I would be most what's the word I'm looking for, in favor of, in terms of having a model like that, is that it kind of level sets all organizations. Yeah, okay. The coach teaching, it's like having it's like, school, elementary school.
Right.
It's the curriculum is standardized by the state. Then you've got different teachers teaching the same subjects. And of course, a better teacher is amazing to have compared to a worse teacher, and that surely would happen, I guess, over there as well. But just the fact that you don't have to be so concerned whether or not you're going to an organization where my kid's going to learn something, because in theory, it's standardized, right?
Yeah. It's funny. We spent the weekend up in upstate New York, and we sat down with Alec Marsh, our buddy Alec Marsh,
Yeah.
from I forgot what episode. But one of the things that he kept stressing to me about plans for next year were, make sure the development is good. Make sure the development is good. How's the development, right? He didn't
Yep.
care about the games. It was just, what's the development like? What kind of on ice are you getting? What kind of off ice are you getting? He was really, really pushing the development. It wasn't pushing how many games are you playing or who's the head coach. It was all about the development. That was pretty telling, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and look, I mean, just kind of segueing into what a lot of families are probably going through nowadays. I mean that's something, if you are making a choice about where you're going next season, or where you're going to try out, get as much information as you can on the coach that's going to be, coaching your kids, potential team or that birth year. It's the last season, I gave, we'd already knew we were going to go to the particular organization, so it's not like I was trying to interview coaches. But before we signed up, I reached out to the coach and just asked him questions. And,
Yeah, you
I
did.
think it's
remember
important that, yeah. And I think it's important that other families do that as well. And even, for next season, I think we're starting to get a clearer picture of what our plan is for next year. And,
Good.
I've talked to a coach and, kind of asked some questions about this, that, and the next. And, what this one coach had to say was like, yeah, totally aligned with everything you're saying.
Was it very developmentally focused?
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely. It was so,
That's the idea.
like almost quoting, but it's like, I don't care about the wins and losses. Don't care about my hockey rankings. I just care that the group that I have in the beginning, by the, the end of the season, they're going to be a much improved team. So in any event, and also praising the right things. There's plenty of teams that get the WWE size belt for player of the game, or a chain or whatever. I mean, it sounds like this team's going to be praising things like
effort,
like being a dog on the ice, compete level and blocking shots, and not the things that kids are going home to Instagram and watching those kind of highlights. You know what I mean? So
right. Otto's going to be a second year Pee-wee next year.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. Listen.
So
it's exciting.
Yeah. How about on your end?
No more hockey on our end. We're done with our season. I don't even know if we talked about this. We lost in I guess the quarterfinals of playoffs to a really good team, a team that beat us, I think 3-1 or 4-1 mid-season. Probably the best AA team that we played all year. Did we talk about this? I don't even remember.
I don't
remember. But we lost to them. So we're done now. We had practice. I guess we had practice, like you were saying at the beginning. Some teams are just having practice until March. We're one of those teams. But yeah, you know,
So the season like now in the rearview mirror, good season.
uh, wins and losses, good season.
Okay.
You know,
Development wise,
um, I don't know how much he developed. Um, I don't know how to answer that.
is
I
he a
don't
better player now than he was at the beginning of the season? Anything
know.
that you noticed on ice that like
No,
maybe
he's not.
was what?
No, he's not a better player. He started the opening weekend like on fire. Um, so no, I think was a worse player at the end of the season than he was at the beginning of the season. He did
And
things.
you feel like you're being fair and
He looked like a better hockey player at the beginning of the season. Now I think things like a change in school kind of kicked him in the teeth. Okay. So he had a lot of stress from school. He had, so that was big. Like he struggled in math, this year, is still struggling in math. So I think that all of a sudden school became very hard,
yeah.
So I think that kind of weighed on him and that affected his play. His play went downhill. Um, so do I think he's a better hockey player at the end of the season? The answer is no. I don't think so. I think Dominic was actually a better hockey player at the beginning of the season. Probably all self-inflicted, right?
I mean, like he did it to himself.
Yeah,
Okay.
Very hard on himself. Kind of went into a slump. Listen, in the grand scheme of things, he probably had something like 55 points in like 50 games. So in the
Okay.
grand scheme of things, not bad, right? But you asked the question, was he a better hockey player at the end of the season than he was at the beginning? And I would say no, because he looked like a more dangerous hockey player at in the opening showcase at the beginning of the season. And then he kind of slowly kind of tailed off from there. He also played a little defense. So like some things happened this year. So it was a strange year. You know what I mean? Would it have been different if he had played like one position the entire season? Maybe. In that last, but I think again, I think it's all like anxiety driven, and it's all mental. It's not that he doesn't have the ability; he does. I think the hitting part also was new.
Yeah, but I feel like he excelled in that area. No,
he did, no question about it.
It changes the dynamic. There's no doubt.
It changes the game when, and I have to tell you, he could get bumped off the puck easier, this year, and that frustrated him too. The fact that he was making a move and he got bumped off the puck,
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. So was it a good year? It was a year, I don't really know how to listen. There was a lot of adversity. And I think that he was able to manage it. It didn't kill him. It probably hampered his play in a bunch of different ways. But I like the adversity. I like the fact that he had to fight through it. And, you push forward, because it's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon. So I hope that answers your question in kind of like a long-winded way.
No, dude, listen, not every season is going to be, one for the ages or, even half of that. Right. So look, I think for Otto, like there's in some ways, there's some things that he got better at.
Right.
There's some things that didn't change much. There's some things that I think, having another, I think by the end, by the end of the
Mhm.
season, and we'll see what happens in playoffs. But I feel like that drip, drip, drip of the same message of like where there's opportunities for improvement. Like I think some of it really started to settle in, and he
Right.
actually, you know, you could see some more effort in certain situations than maybe what I saw earlier. I think he was happy to, be one of the top scorers on the team,
Mhm.
which, for kids his age, that's always, that's,
It's important to them.
it's important. Yeah. It also adds an element of like, feel good, self-esteem stuff.
Yeah,
And
sure. I get it.
I think he was a little low on that at the end of last season. So that was good. So I think on aggregate, it was, um, huh. There's part of me that wants to say it was a good season,
You start to
but
sound like me now.
I know, because I think this was the right move for us, and I think it where our expectations weren't met were alongside of like, yeah, I think like the overall hockey IQ stuff, um,
Mhm.
fundamental habits. Like I didn't go to this team thinking it was going to be as good as the teams that he was on, like for sure not. But they just never really materialized. I think I had higher expectations for what happened for them as a team at large. But I know I did. But all in all, I think this season for him was one that had he stayed where he was, like had he stayed where he was, I don't think he would have. It would have been really tough, really tough. And I think this
You think
is
so?
what he needed. Yeah, even though it was tough in
Okay.
different ways, I think he was. Yeah, it would have been too much
Okay.
to continue to commute and like whatever and blah blah blah. Anyway,
So
so
you're
it was a
happy
mixed
with the
bag.
fact that you guys took him from AAA to AA. You think that was a good
Yes,
move for your family, for
yeah, for
him.
sure.
I think parents get it a little twisted sometimes too, Scott. And you tell me if I'm wrong. I think they think that when you can't leave AAA, and if you ever leave AAA, you'll never go back to AAA. Sometimes kids need a reset, right?
Yeah. And maybe sometimes like, who knows? Maybe like Otto's just going to be a AA player. You know what I mean? Like that's not something I like would have thought like originally, but
I'm not sure
and
that's true, but just
I'm
because
not saying
you're
I believe that, but
right,
like it also, I think if you move your kid from AAA to AA and you realize that, it's just a game, and with
sure,
AA there's less like importance on like the things that people get caught up in, and it just, I don't know. I feel like it kind of
yeah,
brought me down to earth a little bit, and it's okay. No, just as long as he has fun, like
yeah, it's
just as long
important.
as he has fun.
Yeah, no, that part's important to foster the love of the game, let them have fun. Don't be too helicoptery of a parent, right? Listen,
Totally.
Connor Hellebuck played AA his entire youth career,
Yeah, I did.
and look at the
And
guy
there was
now.
13 goalies taken before him the year he was drafted. 13
Is that right?
were taken before him. Yeah. He was
I
drafted
mean,
like the
listen,
fifth round.
right? So for all the people in our comment sections that think you have to play AAA or else they won't find you, it's not
No,
clearly not the case, right?
no. No, but
Definitely.
look, I mean, I think a lot of people also say that, 14, 15, 16, if you trying to go play like Division 1 or
Mm,
a high level hockey, like, yeah, you're probably going to have to be competing at a AAA level. Like, I don't, it's, yes, there are people that never play AAA and go on to do great things. I think the majority of people, there's extremes on both ends, right? People
right.
that were like studs from jump and they're studs till the end. And there are people that
Yep.
don't really come into their own until they're in the AHL or the NHL. But
That's right.
I think for most, there's certain, there you have to reach certain like abilities, for most people.
Yeah. No, I think it's true. Um, yeah. So you're happy with your year overall, right? To kind of recap.
I mean, I'm happy for Otto. I think it reset a
Good.
lot of things for him. I am
Good.
disappointed in the season, generally speaking.
From a wins loss. Are you talking about?
Just from like an overall, like just from an overall perspective, like the wins losses, that's not like something I prioritize, but it's just like I don't feel like the team ever really started playing a team game. It was like selfish hockey from the beginning to the end. you know?
Interesting. We went over that a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
We talked about that. Okay, listen.
Look,
I think
I'm
we
not saying there were
actually-
never elements of like team play, because there were. I think
Yeah.
just like overall though, that the selfishness never got buried. Like it just
Yeah.
was always there.
Okay,
There were
listen,
moments where it
maybe-
was more, there's moments where there was less, but I think that was like,
Okay. Well, listen, I think as a parent, you need to look at the season, and figure out what your kid took out of it. And maybe the answer is nothing. And you need to make a move to another team. Or, maybe the answer is he did this or he did that. It's all just a spoke in the wheel, right? That is their youth hockey life cycle.
yes,
That's all it
sensei.
is.
Yes, it is.
No, but seriously, right? It's just when
It's
you
part of the
look back
journey.
on this, right? When you look back on this, nobody's going to be like, wow, how did your, Pee Wee minor year go?
No.
Right?
Listen, I'll say this though. I mean, you talk about things that are that are not hockey related. I don't think I've ever had so many different hockey friends at this house. Like, from granted, last year the
Perfect.
kids were from further
Yeah.
away, but like even when Otto played at the Avs,
Right.
where there's more local kids, and look, they were younger also then, but like we had tons of friends over, like
Right.
tons, and he went to different friends' houses. So like socially,
great.
it was, I think, a great season for
It
him.
was great
Yeah.
for him. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
I was telling you, I went up to see Alec Marsh this past weekend up in Geneva, and we went to a couple of Hobart games, and I'm standing next to a mom from the opposite team. Hobart was playing Fredonia. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm standing there talking to a mom who happened to be from Rye, New York, right here,
Huh.
right, not far from us at all. So her kid plays for Fredonia. So I started talking to her because she was standing right next to me, and her kid obviously went down the right wing and shot, and goalie saved it, and she kind of did like a this, like
Yeah.
she like jumped, like kind of jumped a little bit. So I looked at her and I said, "Your son?" She said,
Oh,
"Yes."
really?
Yeah. So I started talking to her, and I said, "What year is he?" And she goes, "Well, he's a freshman." And I was like, she kind of like paused before she said it. And I was just curious what the pause was for. And she's like, "Well, he's a 22-year-old freshman." And I was like, and I looked at her and I was like, "Isn't that normal now for like hockey players?" She's like, "Yeah, he played a couple years of juniors." I was like, "Yeah, that's not uncommon." I was like,
Yeah.
"That's kind of the standard now."
Yeah.
I guess the reason I'm bringing that up is because nobody really gives a shit what your Pee Wee minor year was, is my point.
No doubt.
Right? I mean, he's a 22-year-old freshman in college playing D3 hockey. Like, nobody's going to go up to him and be like, "So, do you remember your kid's Pee Wee minor year?"
No, of course not.
So
No,
my point
but
is, it's just another cog in the wheel of development,
no doubt.
right? Right.
Yeah.
As long as the kids take something out of it and they foster love of or the parent can try to foster love of the game, everything else is easy.
Yeah, man.
You just kind of roll with the punches. I will say this. The difference when you're watching Division III hockey, okay? And there were parents all around us, okay? From both teams. You didn't hear, and Nancy pointed this out. She goes, "Jamie," she goes, "you notice that there's not one parent in the stands that's going, 'Shoot the puck, pass it, get him, hit him, skate harder, faster, go, skate with it.'" Not one peep from any hockey parent.
Well, what, you were in the middle of the hockey parent section? How do you know?
Because Hobart, the cooler that they play, it's called the cooler,
Yeah.
it's not a very large building.
Okay.
Maybe
got
it
you.
seats 500 people.
Got you.
Like, it's tiny. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Okay.
So there's
Got you.
parents all around you. And we had run into some like at lunch when we were having lunch with Marsh in this place called Water Street Cafe. And a parent on the hockey team walked up to him like right there in the while we were eating. So, and I saw the gentleman. He was like a couple seats down from me. So Scott, you didn't hear boo from any parent.
And
Not
what's the takeaway?
The takeaway is that maybe we should all just shut our mouths and watch, because those parents are just sitting there watching. Do you know who was the loudest lady there? Want to hear?
Nancy.
This crazy woman sitting right next to us. And we went to the game Friday night against Buffalo State and then Saturday night against Fredonia.
Okay.
There was a woman sitting next to me to my left with her husband, and like their friends were sitting in front of them. And she's like super fan. She must have been like 65, right? There with a husband. They're in there. She's got like her Hobart earrings and her Hobart cowbell, right? And like whenever something good happens, her and her gaggle, like they shake their cowbell, and they were the loudest people in the joint,
Okay.
right? And the funny part about it is there was like a scrum over in the corner to our right.
Yeah.
And this woman who basically was just loud with her cowbells all game long, all of a sudden she goes, like they're like a scrum in the corner, and they were kind of like not throwing haymakers, but they were kind of like pushing and shoving and throwing a little bit of hands. She's like, so we're all watching down to our right, and she's behind me to my left because we're all turned. And you hear this again, the sweet old lady, like short haircut, glasses, looks like a professor at the school, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden you hear her go, "Get the fuck off of him!" From this like old lady. It was like unbelievable.
You didn't see it coming.
Oh my God, right? Like, so, but the point is that like the parents said nothing. They said zero from the stands. How many times do you would game? Ruzzioni was talking about it when we interviewed him. He's like, the pass it, Johnny, shoot back, like you hear, Scott, you heard none of that. Parents just sit there quietly and watch. They go to the locker room after, they give their kid a hug, boom, let's go out to dinner. That's that. Like, it's easy.
Well, listen, I think, and I could be way wrong because I haven't thought about this at all, but like at some point, clearly, like, no matter how much like you tell your kids something, like they take responsibility for their own decisions. Like, I think from a parental perspective, there's got to be a time when like you feel like, all right, that window's closed where I can actually like, influence him or her, and look, but you're also at like a game attended by 500
Fair.
people, not like, I don't know, whatever the deal is. But yeah, I mean,
my point is that you didn't hear any crazy hockey parents. They were all just sitting there watching, and
they were well-behaved hockey parents.
Oh, it was like, listen, Hobart's very good, right? I mean, they won 3 straight national championships on the way to winning a 4th right now. The playoffs start on Wednesday.
So they don't have much to yell about then, I guess.
I mean, listen, but you don't hear
Except
any
for
of the parents.
Success.
You don't hear any of the parents going bananas in the stands. You just don't. Nobody says, Scott, nobody says boo. Nobody says a thing. That's
right.
very telling. And all these kids are playing college hockey.
So you're saying that the parents, like, that you're hypothesizing that these parents might have been that way when their kids were younger too.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Correct. And maybe there's maybe there's a correlation between now that their kid is good enough to play D3 hockey. I'm just saying.
Maybe
it was a takeaway that we noticed. Nancy noticed it. She turned to me and she goes, "Jamie, do you notice?" And she said it, and I was like, "Oh shit, Nancy, you're right." Maybe there's something to be said for that. Maybe we all just need to relax and just watch our kid play and foster the love of the game and let them go on their journey. And we are just there to support and drive and pay for it.
Yeah, I'll make a deal with you. We can both remind each other of that when we're both feeling like we're ready to
snap,
to jump off the deep end.
Yeah, and maybe when
the love
you
of the
get
game, James. It's the love of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me that when I call you next time in a panic.
I will.
But I'm saying maybe there's something to that.
No, it's definitely part of the conversation. I mean, definitely part of like the whole picture.
You would think so, right?
No, it is. No, I think it's undeniable.
Good. Yeah, it was good. It was interesting to see some Division III hockey. That Hobart team is wow.
Good, huh?
They're a very good hockey team.
That's awesome. Good for him. Good for Alec.
Bunch of D1 transfer kids. They're like a well-oiled machine.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, pretty cool to watch. So if you're ever in that area, go catch a game. Try not to get snowed in there, but yeah, It's
Probably not going to be near there anytime soon, but
it is not around the corner, right? It is not easy to get to, that's for sure. Up in Geneva, New York, lovely area in the Finger Lakes, but not the easiest place to get to.
All right. Well, you did it, and you made it back, and
We did.
just in time to shovel.
Just
and
in time to
watch
shovel,
the
so that
USA
was
win.
fun.
Turn off here. Why?
Yes,
Why do you have so many timers?
I don't. It's not.
What do you? What are you? What are you
somebody was calling
setting
me.
alarms for?
I don't even know who that was.
That's what your phone sounds like when it rings?
Yeah, I think so. I forgot to. I don't know. I forgot to turn the ringer off. What do you want me to tell you?
I don't know.
I don't know. Are you saying my ringer is like is not up to par?
No, it just goes off often. You must be very popular.
I don't think so. I don't think that's it.
Okay. Anyhow, why don't you want to wrap this one up?
Yes, this was fun, man.
Oh wait, sorry. Let me just double check the time.
Yeah,
we're at 29 minutes and 43 seconds. Is that too early?
We didn't cut anybody short. I didn't bust.
No, I don't want to cut you short.
Well, listen, and I didn't want to bust your chops today and get anybody else upset. So, you know.
No, you
so
can. You didn't teach me anything today.
I took it easy on you today. You know what I mean? All right, so your family has been stuck in Florida now with the winter weather. Did you at least watch any good movies?
You know what's so funny, and I'm not lying. I was going to call you last night and say, dude, what movie should I watch?
Listen, you should have.
But I didn't.
Well, you should have. I was in the car on the way home from Geneva. So,
well, okay, so I'll ask you now, what movie should I watch?
Are we talking like one that like you've seen?
I don't know.
Or okay. Have you seen Old School in a while?
Not recently, no.
You should go watch Old School. Wedding Crashers, Old School, Talladega Nights, Anchorman. I mean, Dodgeball.
Okay.
I can keep going. Have you seen any of these in a while?
No. Some of them I've never seen, and definitely haven't seen any of them recently. I would probably say I would probably say Wedding Crashers is the one that I've seen most recently, but it's been years.
I said Wedding Crashers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, but I'm sorry. Wedding Crashers is the one you have seen? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. My bad. I got
probably,
gotcha.
But it's been a long time. Anyway, that's a good list. I'm going to keep that list, and I will chip away at it at some point.
Yes, at some point, yes. And you let me know what you think, and we'll do a crazy.
Listen, they're funny movies. It's not a matter of what I think. Part of my yawn. It's just my memory of the lines that you drop are not up to movie buff status.
Well, you need to. Speaking of Talladega Nights, maybe you need to go get a macchiato.
All right, Ricky Bobby.
Oh my God! Yes.
Oh,
that's impressive.
Okay.
It's nice. You're learning. I love it, buddy. I love it.
Let's wrap this up.
All right, homeboy. I'll talk to you later.
Peace out, dude.
See you, buddy. Later.